So now we start with verse number 17 today. What we have scheduled is 17, 18, and 19. Tesham jnani nityayuktaha ek bhaktir visheshyate priya ho hi jnanut artham aham sa cha mam priyah. So Krishna says, Tesham, of them, the Jnani, ever steadfast with single pointed devotion is the highest. I am extremely dear to the Jnani and he is dear to me. Simple verse. Let's take it up word by word. Tesham, of them, Jnani is the wise. Nitya Yukta. So Nitya is constantly or ever, Yukt, united, or with ever, who is ever steadfast. Ek bhakti. Ek is one. Bhakti is devotion. So ek bhakti means single pointed devotion. Vishishyate, excels. Vishesh, excels or is the highest. Priya is dear. He indeed. Jnanin, of the wise. Athyartham, extremely. Aham, I. Sa, he. Cha, and. Mam, me. Priya, dear. So if we translate it to grammatically correct English, it becomes, of them, the Jnani, ever steadfast with single pointed devotion is the highest. I am extremely dear to the Jnani and he is dear to me. Let's chant it together and then we'll take it up. Tesham Jnani Nityayuktaha ek
bhakti vishishyate priyo hi jnanityotyam
aham cha mam priyah. So of them, the verse starts with of them. So this is carried from the previous verse. In the previous verse, as we have just revised, there were 4 categories of people: the mentally agitated, the people who were curious, and the people who were looking for material wealth, and the wise. So of them, the wise is being focused on in this verse. Okay. So this category of people is being singled out and as distinctive and distinguished. So he says the Jnani excels or is the highest. Why is that? And the 2 qualities that are brought out in the verse are the reason why Jnani is supposed to be the best amongst the people who actually look for God. Okay. So the 2 qualities, one is the Nitya Yukta or constantly united, ever steadfast. So that is the first quality. So the Jnani puts in concentrated and consistent effort to be on the path of seeking God or on the path of self-realization. He or she wants to understand that final support, which supports the, which maintains, supports the entire universe, right? And this is part of the, when we talk of the causal body, etc., this is part of the intelligence. So we are talking at the level of the intelligence. And then, so that is the first quality, Nitya Yukta, constantly united or ever steadfast. The second quality is Ek Bhakti, exclusive devotion. One devotion, exclusive devotion, deep devotion to God, and unflinching and unwavering feeling for God. So that is the second quality. Now, when we talk of the second quality, this single pointed devotion, okay, what are we saying? That we concentrate on one thing to the exclusion of all other things. normally we are not able to execute it in our daily lives. It's very difficult. And the best story from our scriptures that I would like to take up at this particular point of time is from the Mahabharata itself. And so we all may recollect that Dronacharya was the guru of the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And so in one of the classes, which was on archery, he hung a fish from the top of the tree, and the students were supposed to go to the bottom of the fish and shoot the arrow into the fish, right? Shoot the arrow into the fish, hit the fish. So one by one, so 100 Kauravas and 5 Pandavas, they were called. And so the exercise was explained, and he called each one by one, and he asked that, what do you see? So the first person who came, he said that, I see the tree, and I see the branches, and I see the leaves. So he told, okay, you can go. You don't need to shoot. He called the second one. So that guy says, okay, I can see the grass, and then I can see the sky, and then I see the tree, and I see the rope from which the fish is hanging. So he said, okay, you can go. The third one, I can see the fish, I can see the scales on the fish, I can see the rope from which the fish is hung. So again, the Dronacharya said, you can go, you don't need to shoot. One by one, they were all rejected. I mean, they were not allowed to shoot, even pick up the bow. Then came Arjun. So then Dronacharya says, Arjun, what do you see? So he says, Guruji, I see the eye of the fish. Right. So the exercise was to hit the eye of the fish. So he says, I see the eye of the fish. He says, okay, now you pick up the bow and you shoot. So this is single pointed concentration. Arjun had taken out everything else from the horizon. He did not see the tree, the branches, leaves, rope, blah, blah, blah. He just saw the target. So this is single pointed concentration. And we have examples around us. So you have the Olympic champions who want to win that medal, and that person will put an all-out effort to win that medal. He focuses on the sport. Anything that he does, he will first determine whether it'll take him towards his goal of winning that Olympic medal. If not, he will say, okay, maybe I can do it afterwards. I will do it later. And so on and so forth. Similarly, a person who wants to be Miss World or Mr. Universe, they are only focusing on their physique and their mental aptitude as well. So anything which goes outside this scope, they will not do. A person who's a businessman, wants his business to prosper, will focus on wealth and making profits out of all the transactions he's doing. Similarly, a person who's seeking God must focus on that God to the exclusion of everything, and that includes the world. So a jnani, with his single-pointed devotion, a single-pointed concentration, is dispassionate towards the world and seeks God and only God. See, when we talk about dispassion, it does not mean that he does not function in the world. So, for example, it's not that a person who is seeking a gold medal, or a person who's not, who's becoming, wants to be a businessman, stops doing all other activities. No, you continue to be a family member or family head, whatever it is. But your focus is only on what you have set out to do, what your goal is. So, similarly, the jnani only sees God, and he's shifted his attention from the body, mind, and intellect to his inner self. And he continues to pursue this inner self till the time he reaches his inner being, and in that he will start seeing the supreme being. So he continues his quest till the time he becomes one with his inner being and the supreme being, right? So in verse 5, we had read that, the entire creation, verse 5 of this chapter itself, we had seen that the entire creation is, the God is the womb of all this entire creation. So the entire creation is actually supported in God. And Jnani's quest is to know that God, which is the ultimate aim for actually for the entire mankind. The Jnani is the person who's coming closest to it. The rest of us keep getting caught up in the world, and it's what the world has to offer us. So now a word of caution here. See, the second part says, I am extremely dear to the Jnani and he is dear to me. Right? Now, one may think that the verse is, hinting at a preferential treatment being given to a Jnani. But that is not the case. If we understand it, what is being said is that the Jnani is is closest to understanding God. And we will take this up further in the next verse. It does not mean that he gets, preferred treatment. He gets a VIP treatment. No, it's not that. But he's closest to understanding God. And to that extent, he is dear to God. The remaining three categories of worshippers are functioning in the world, attached to their material equipment, and are indulging in the objects of desires. One is looking for mental peace, someone is looking for material wealth, another is just seeking knowledge for knowledge's sake. They do not have selfless devotion. They're still seeking something. They have a motive there. So they do not have selfless devotion. And they continue worshipping God with aiming to have a finite aim or some desire to be fulfilled. So I'll have peace of mind. And we all know, I mean, you can ask yourself and you can ponder over this, will our desires and expectations ever be fulfilled? It'll never happen. We have spent so many years on earth we still have so many desires remaining. And for everything we keep saying, when we come to, worshipping God or taking out time for prayers and things of that kind, we say, I don't have the time. I'm just so busy. I'm running around the whole day. So I'm just so busy. The point is, it's not a question of time. It's a question of will. It is the will that is lacking. The moment you decide to do something, you will actually do it. And a simple example here is that we keep saying that we don't have the time, but look at the amount of time we spend complaining, grumbling, finding fault. We lose count of it. We could at least use that time for better results, for better things. And the moment we start questioning what surrounds us, we start on our spiritual journey. And we can do this simply by thinking and remembering God in all our daily activities. So when you are gardening, you think of God and see what he is left, how he's displaying his nature to you. When you're cooking, you could be thinking that as if you are cooking for God and God is coming for lunch place. So in and through every, you could just think of God. And that is how you have to work. And also, I would like to mention that science, the modern science, is trying to analyze this nature and what we see around us. But the problem is that they are doing it by analyzing the material layers. So you see wood, what does it consist of? These are the atoms, these are the molecules, and so on and so forth. The point is that you're working at the material level, which is the Maya, God's divine Maya. So you keep analyzing that. That is where you will remain. Things like fulfillment, bliss, harmony, peace, they can only come through spiritual development. It's not there in the world. You will not find it. And so spiritual journey has to be undertaken. There is no other way of gaining that peace. So that is what this verse is saying. Moving on to verse number 18. Udara sarva eveti jnani tvatmeva mimatam asthita sahi yuktatma mamam gatim. So the verse translates to, noble indeed are all these. All these means, again, the four categories of people who seek God. So a point to be noted is we are not even considering the people who do not seek God. They are, they're not even worthy of to come within the scope of discussion. It's like only the students who pass class 1 can go on to class 2, the rest of them, the people who fail, they're not even worthy of discussion. So the verse translates to, noble indeed are all these, but the jnani, verily I deem as myself, for steadfast in mind, he established in me alone as the supreme goal. Let's take this up word by word. Udara or Udar Hridayaka, noble. Survey all. Ave indeed. Ete, these. Jnani, tu, but. Atma, self. God. Ave, only. Me, my. Matam, mera mat, opinion. Asthita, established, well established. Saha, he, for. Yukt Atma, steadfast in mind. Mam, me. Ave alone. Anuttamam, supreme. Uttam. And Gatim, goal. What we seek. So let's chant it together. Udara sarva eveti jnani tvatmeva mimatam asthita sahi yuktatma mamam gatim. So Udar, what he's saying, the other people who seek God are also noble because they're at least seeking God, right? The rest of the mankind, as I said, is not even considered noble because they are so immersed in the material world that they lose even the basic conscience, leading a sensual and materialistic life, low moral values, which are based on falsehood and deceit. And they exhibit qualities like infatuation, lust, envy, greed, etc. So they are outside the scope. In this verse, Krishna says that I consider the jnani to be me. So that is what he's saying when he says that, in my opinion, I deem him, the jnani, as myself. Because the jnani is able to peel off these material layers of the body, mind, and intellect, and is actually able to approach the subtler and the pure and the indestructible God. So when we talk of the attributes of God, what are these? Can someone say, or you want me to say?
The attributes of God.
Some basic attributes.
Everything comes from him.
Yeah, but when I'm talking about, so things like
omniscient, omnipotent,
all those things.
knowing.
Yeah. So the God is pure and indestructible. That is the basic thing. Apart from all this, all-knowing, whatever. The another important part of God is that God is without a physical existence. So we've already covered in verse 4 and 5 that he manifests himself through this as divine Maya, which is a play of the gunas, right? And the higher and the upper natures of God, right? So God is without a physical existence, right? So what does that mean? That he does not have a form, does not have a shadow, and is beyond the gunas. And we, in this chapter only, we have said that you must know that the gunas exist in me and I am not in the gunas, right? So he's beyond all that. Now, when I say that I am also God, what is the difference here? Right? The difference is that the Jivatma, that is my Atma, shares all the characteristics of the God. And these, incidentally, we had covered as far back as chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. And so I do have these attributes, but then I have a body, I cast a shadow and I display the gunas. So what happens is that when my soul associates with matter in the form of a body, it acquires the opposite characteristics as well. So I get a form with a shadow, I get a body, and I get the characteristics of matter, and I become impure and destructible.
No,
Okay.
here,
Yeah.
see, it doesn't happen to the Atma, but I feel it's happening. That
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel now I am a body. I feel
Correct.
that I can now be destroyed.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel I'm born and I will die. Right.
Correct. Correct. That is because I have a body. Now, I'm born. And the moment I'm born, I will die. So I'm destructible. God is not indestructible. We may continue to function in the world thinking we are indestructible, but we all know that all of us have to die. All of us who are attending will die one day, right? There's no this thing. And I'm exhibiting the attributes of matter. My finger can be cut. So, the moment I take a body, all these I get the opposite attributes as well. Now the Atman, my Jivatma, which is within me, is the only thing. And this is why the chapter 2 I'm quoting here, because there we talked about all those attributes of the Atman, that it can never be cut, it can never die. And if all this does not happen, then why, Arjun, should you not fight the war? Because, the Atma, nothing happens to the Atma, right? So, but the thing is that the moment we associate with matter, we have not only those attributes of God, the formless, pure, indestructible, blah, blah, blah. We also have the opposites within us now. Now the question arises is that why do we associate with matter? Any answers here? Why do we want to associate with matter and take up those characteristics which are actually which we should not?
Because it satisfies our desires, our senses feel gratified.
Yeah. We have that baggage of vasanas we are carrying. So if we are carrying the baggage of vasanas, that vasanas and the desires have to be fulfilled. And therefore we are born again and again. Right? Therefore, we associate with matter. So, for example, if I'm very fond of jalebis and I say, oh my God, I'm on my deathbed, I wish I could have another jalebi. Well, lo behold, I'll be born again. And till the time my taste of, sense of taste is fulfilled. So that I have to become pure. I should not have that vasana for that jalebi in my, whenever I become one with God, he has no desires. He has no vasanas. He does not work at the level of the senses. So that is why we are associating with matter. So God plus vasanas, there was this equation which we had mentioned some time back. God plus vasanas equals man or woman. I mean, human. Okay, let's put it that way. So that is why we are associating, we are being born again and again to fulfill whatever we want to fulfill at the level of the world, whatever we see. Now the Jnani, when he starts knowing this great consciousness, he actually realizes that it is beyond all these material objects. And he becomes complete by himself. And consequently, even though he's embodied, his soul is there. I mean, separate from the God soul or part of the God soul, but it has a form, right? So that same ocean and wave example. So the wave is there, but he knows that I am actually that ocean. That is the difference between such a person, the Jnani, as opposed to the rest of the people that we covered in the chapters 15 and 16, I think. So in its association with God, the Jivatma also acquires some of the attributes or the qualities of God, despite being hounded by the pairs of opposites, the other qualities. So some peacefulness, blissfulness, feeling of justice, oneness he starts seeing. See, it's the same. A very common thing is that someone is going to, let's say, Vaishno Devi, right? And I'm not able to go. So what do I do? What do most of us do? कि भाई ये लो, 125 रुपया आप लो या 101 रुपया आप लो, मेरी तरफ से भी प्रसाद चढ़ा देना. Right? We do this. Now, the point is, why are we doing this? We are associating through that person. That person will actually go and visit Vaishno Devi shrine, will will do naman at the Devi's feet. तो अगर वो कर रहे हैं तो हमारा भी अगर ले जाएंगे और हमारा भी चढ़ावा चढ़ा देंगे तो by the law of transitivity हम भी वहां झुका रहे हैं, right? That is what it means. That is why we say कि भाई हमारी तरफ से भी चढ़ा देना, right? So या फिर कोई आप आश्रम में जाते हैं and the guru is very ज्ञानी and all, and you may not be able to approach him directly and you want some time, then you will go to his second in command, who would normally be a shishya, who would be the closest to the guru, and you will put in a say that please put in a word for me, I want to meet the guru for 5 minutes, I want to discuss something, so what are you doing? You are identifying this person as being a representative of that guru because he's closest to the guru. He, through his good understanding of the guru, he is closest to the guru, and therefore you think he will be able to attribute it to the guru. Similarly, when we send the prasad, because this person is closest to the Devi, so you think, okay, if I give my 101 rupees, mera bhi wahan pe jaake ho jayega. This is the law of transitivity. So that's exactly what is happening in the case of Jnani. He is coming closer and closer to God. And another very good example that I find is that of Ram and Hanuman. मतलब अगर आप हनुमान जी की राम के भक्त हैं तो आप बाय डिफॉल्ट आप हनुमान भक्त हो, एंड अगर आप हनुमान भक्त हो तो अगेन बाय डिफॉल्ट यू आर राम भक्त. दोनों में फर्क नहीं है एक्चुअली. अब वो अपनी अपनी श्रद्धा है कि कौन किसका भक्त है, राइट? सो द ज्ञानी नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस, he is seeing those attributes of God. He's seeing that oneness across creation, entire creation. And in the last chapter itself, Dhyan Yoga, verse number 30, we had done, where Krishna had said that he who sees me everywhere and sees all in me, I am not lost to him, nor is he lost to me. That means we completely understand and acknowledge each other. How can we lose each other? So that is what the verse said, and not so far back, only about 40 verses back. And then verse 31 of Dhyan Yoga, chapter 6 said, he who established in oneness worships me, abiding in all beings, that yogi dwells in me, whatever be his mode of living. I mean, so he could be a butcher, gardener, carpenter, businessman, whatever he is, yogi, sannyasi, whatever he is, he dwells in me. So here we are talking about that Jnani or that self-realized person who is aware of the self-pervading reality through the creation. The same water and wave example, which I've just covered, he understands that it's all the ocean. They're no, the water is not different. It's a part of the ocean. So as a result, he adores, worships all beings, and he conducts himself as if other beings were himself. He sees himself in all beings and all beings in himself, just as a person in a hall of mirrors identifies all images as images of himself or herself. So the verse, in this verse, Krishna is saying that such a person resides in God, whatever be his mode of living, and hence, he's considered to be me. I consider him to be me. So this is what the verse is saying. Moving on to verse number 19. Bahunanam manamante jnanavan mam prapadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti Samahatma sudurlabha. So the translation is that at the end of many births, Bahunam Janman Mante, the man of wisdom reaches me, realizing that all this is Vasudeva. Here it means reality. Vasudeva is also a name for Krishna. So realizing that all this is Vasudev, such a great soul is very difficult to find. So this is what the verse is saying. Word by word, Bahunam, Bahunam of many, Janmanam of births, Ante in the end, Jnanavan or man of wisdom, Jnani, Mam to me, Prapadyate reaches. So the first line translates to, at the end of many births, the man of wisdom reaches me. Vasudeva, reality. Sarvam iti, all. Sarvam is all. Iti, thus. Saha, he. Mahatma is a great soul. Mahatma. Sudurlabha, very difficult. Durlabh is difficult. Sudurlabh is very difficult. Okay. So, such a great soul is very difficult to find. So the verse translates to, at the end of many births, the man of wisdom reaching me, realizing that all this is reality. Such a great soul is very difficult to find. Let's chant it together. Bahunam janmanamante Jnanavan mam prapadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti Samahatma sudurlabha. Now, see, the concept of many births is a recurring concept in our scriptures. And I mean, across the Upanishads that you might be reading or whatever, these many births are repeated. And in our case, it was repeated as recently as chapter 6, verse number 45, where we were told, where Krishna had mentioned, that the yogi striving with assiduity, completely purified of sins, perfected through many births, then reaches the supreme goal, God, right? So this concept of many births is there. And at that time also we had discussed, but nevertheless, it's a concept which takes time to understand. See, we feel that, oh my God, many births, who is going to put in all that work? Right. So this many births sounds fairly pessimistic, that it's so far away, it's so much beyond our reach. The point is that we start counting our births from this point onwards. From so many births, we think will start from here. But actually, if we look at our life and continue, I mean, whatever we were, the previous lives also are there. So maybe this is the last birth. So firstly, we should not have that kind of a negative approach to this. And we should work with the attitude that maybe this is the last birth and maybe I will get enlightened in this birth itself, carrying the momentum of my previous births. Why not? So that is that is the attitude we have to take, as opposed to the attitude that, okay, now this is the first birth, and from here I will start. And so in the scripture, Bhagavad Gita says that it'll take many births. So it's impossible for me to get it in this lifetime. No, that's not the attitude with which we should work. So we have to take forward the momentum of our previous births and make our current life the last one in this direction. And hopefully with our effort, we will realize that Brahman. So many births, this is one interpretation, as a cyclical event. The second thing it's telling us is that a lot of effort is required. So the effort that we have to require, that is required to maintain that single pointed concentration is tremendous, is humongous. And, you can see it in the examples that I gave, that Olympic medal aspirant will just not do it. I mean, so if his friends are out partying, he will not go for the party. He'll say, no, I have to get up early and I have to practice. So I would rather go for that. So that is at the physical level, and when we talk of God, there's so much of the world which is we are perceiving continuously. We have to let go and not get involved with it. So a lot of effort is required to let go. And it is our ignorance which is actually making us lost in this maze of Maya. And once we understand ourselves, the Maya actually will not have any value for us. And see, here I want to go in some amount of details. We don't understand the amount of impulses that we are processing at any nanosecond. We must actually appreciate this, how much our system is actually taking in. So if I go out into the garden and the mind can focus on one thing, okay, so that is another thing. And some attributes, if I would like to discuss with you of the mind. And here I'm talking about mind and intellect as one, actually. So I'm slightly going away from the topic, but trying to help you understand the processes that are taking place. See, mind is in control of the Jnanindriya, which is the sense organs, and the Karmindriya, hand, body, feet, etc. Hand, feet, tongue for speech and all that. So when let's say you go out into the garden, what happens? You see, let's say, amongst the flowers, you see flowers. So that is registered. The mind sends that impulse to your intellect. Now, intellect actually goes to the memory store, which is called, in our scriptures, it's called the chitta, which is a chip, like a chip, a memory chip. So it sees the flowers. So firstly, it registers, okay, these are flowers that I'm seeing. Now, if you focus on that one flower, which is rose, okay, let's say, just an example. So now your mind, your eyes are focusing on that. The impulses are sent to the brain sends it to the intellect processes and says, okay, that's a rose, right? So now the intellect, from its previous experiences, from that memory of a storehouse, it says, okay, maybe I'd like to smell it. So the intellect sends that impulse back to the mind. The mind now makes you go for, it's activates the Karmindriya, and you go forward and you smell the rose. And then again, the impulses are going back. All this, it took me so long to explain to you, but it takes less than a second for you to do all this. So see how efficient our system is and how much we are processing continuously. The problem is that all this is taking us out more and more into the world, and we are wasting our faculties or expending our energies into these things. And we are continuously lost in that maze of form, smell, color, etc., etc. The oneness which is between me and that rose, that is what we are missing. We are missing the substratum, the ocean. We are seeing the waves. And again, coming back to the chapter, it says such a great soul is very difficult to find. So that is what he's saying. Now, why? If you look at the entire universe, okay, in the entire universe, the world is such a small part of that entire universe. Now, the world itself consists of infinite number of beings. You know, if we talk of reptiles, fishes, birds, micro animals, etc., there are infinite number of beings. So out of all this, humans are such a small portion. And of those small portion of humans, only, you know, a number of them actually seek God. Therefore, the Jnani is difficult to find. And once he understands that substratum, he realizes that is the reality. So he is dear to God and he's never lost to him. Right. So this is actually the gist of all the three verses that we have done today, 17, 18, and 19. And with that, we will end today's session. And I will share this thing with you, the closing invocation, and then we are open for question answers. Wait, just give me a moment. Okay, so this is our at the session end from Ishavasya Upanishad. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya
Purnasya
Purnamadaya
Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate.
Om
Om
Shanti
Shanti Shanti Shanti.